Okay, I think we're ready to get started.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming this evening. For those of you watching at home, please put any questions for the speaker in the comment section or chats. A little louder. Okay, yeah, I'll get that then. All of our programs are being recorded and will be available on the York County History Center YouTube channel. Just a couple of announcements this is our last Allvets program for the year. Our next program will be the fourth Saturday in January. So stay tuned for more information about that. On Sunday, November 6th, our Genealogy Society speaker is Richard Konkel, speaking on German genealogy records. On November 12th is our Articles of Confederation Day at the Colonial Courthouse. Lots of activities, reenactors, and original documents if you want to come out and see that. November 16th is our Civil War Roundtable with Bradley and Linda Gottfried, speaking on Lincoln and the creation of Soldiers National Cemetery. So for more information about our programs, just go to yorkhistorycenter.org. And I'd like to introduce Gary Lehman, who will speak about his experiences in the Air Force.
Thank you. Okay, good evening. My name is Gary Lehman. I'm a native of York County. I was raised in Springersbury Township in an area that anybody knows where the Glades is. Well, heard of it. The area is known for its two-room schoolhouse. My family lived in that area for quite a while, and I attended that school the last year it was open. I was first grade there. I was the third generation to go to that school. After it closed, they turned the schoolhouse into an auction house.
Oh, yeah, I know where it's at now.
I also attended schools in Pleasureville, Springersbury, and then Central High. I graduated there in 1963. I enlisted in the Air Force on July 12th, 1963, with 12 other enlistees. I have a picture of us up here, standing on the courthouse steps. I'll tell you a little bit about that. One of those was Tom Beecroft. He was a fellow classmate from Central. York was having a downtown York sidewalk fair. At that time, there was still a lot of stores in downtown York. We were sworn in on the steps of the courthouse and then taken to the Yorktown for lunch. We were then bused to New Cumberland Army Depot, and there we were sworn in for real. So that was just all show for the public at Newark. We then flew to Newark, New Jersey, and then to San Antonio, Texas, to Lackland Air Force Base. During basic training, I was there in July and August. It was very hot and dry, except for the only day we were supposed to run the obstacle course, and it rained like you wouldn't believe. I only held a weapon for 2 days. One day to get familiar with it at a safety course, and the second day at the rifle range. We used the old M1 rifle. That's what we used back then. One day in basic, I don't remember what week it was, my name appeared on this list to take a Morse code test, which I never even realized that they had anything like that in the Air Force. So I took the test and I passed it. So because of that, I went to radio school. I probably remembered the code because they used to teach us that in the Boy Scouts. One of the biggest disappointments I had in basic, I don't know what weekend it was, we got to go in town. I always wanted to see the Alamo. Well, you get in there, and there's the Alamo around, and all these huge office buildings on either side. Well, that's just the biggest disappointment you ever want to see, you know. I was assigned to the 3386th School Squadron, Keesler Air Force Base, Biloxi, Mississippi. I departed Lackland in late August and went by train to Mississippi. We had 26 weeks of school I finished basic at Keystone and after a week of KP started school. The school was divided into 2 phases of 13 weeks each. One day late November, our instructor came into the class and told us to tune into the radio station. Now that was a big no-no. You were not allowed to even hear a radio station while you were in class. You had to be copying code all the time. Well, he said the president had been shot. So we could listen to the news reports. So they canceled class for the rest of the day and sent us back to the barracks. And that weekend, I was watching television and I saw Lee Harvey Oswald get shot right on live TV. Now in the school, you had these tapes that they kept running over and over again. It was like 100 words on each tape, and you were only allowed 3 errors. After they started out, I don't remember how slow they started, but after you passed one, they upped it to words, and you kept going. You had to pass 18.6 words a minute, which is there's like 5 letters or 5 numbers in each group. So you had to pass 18.6. At the end of phase 1, I finally got to go on leave. The second week of December, I came home. I had 14 days leave, but I had to be back by Christmas Day. 2 days before I was to return, we had one heck of a snowstorm here in York, so there was no flights. So I was going to take a train. Back then, the passenger trains were still running out of York. So the train was late getting to York. And then I missed my connection out of DC. So I finally got to Atlanta Christmas morning. So my first Christmas in the Air Force, I spent all day at the Atlanta train station waiting for my train that evening to go to Biloxi. So I finally got to Biloxi on the 26th, reported to school, and then I couldn't believe this. New Year's Eve in Biloxi, Mississippi, we had one heck of a snowstorm down there. And this is right on the Gulf. We had 5 inches of snow. While the people down there don't know how to drive in snow. So, but after about 3 days, it was all gone because it warmed up enough and everything went away. One thing about, I was glad I had typing in high school because as you heard the code, you typed it. So I was glad I had typing, so I was familiar with the typewriter and how to use it. I graduated in March of '64 and was assigned to the 6913th Security Group in Bremerhaven, Germany. I was given 30 days leave in order to report to McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey for a flight to Germany. Upon graduation, I was promoted to Airman Second Class, or E3. I arrived in Bremerhaven around April 22nd, 1964. 6913th Security Group was located on a large Army transportation base located in northern Germany, right on the North Sea. And troop ships were constantly coming in and out all the time. And we could always tell when there was a troop ship, If you went to the chow hall for breakfast and you had powdered eggs, you knew there was a troop ship because they would bring all the guys off the ship, run them through our chow hall and give them powdered eggs and then send them down south. But I was assigned to Able Flight. We worked 24/7, 365 days a year. The unit was broken into 4 flights working as follows. You would have 4 days on second shift, 24 hours off, 4 days on third shift, 24 hours off, 4 days on day work with 4 days off. After about the first, I was supposed to be there for 3 years. After about a little over a year, the Air Force at that time had what they called a 2T program. It needed personnel in short tours, so it selected men from longer tours of at least 3 years and sent them to remote sites. One of the benefits was a promotion to Airman First at 27 months and Staff Sergeant at 36 months. I was selected with orders to report to the 69th 87th Security Group in Taiwan in June of 1965. I didn't have to report until April of 66 with a stopover at Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo, Texas, for the purpose of attending a mission improvement conference for a 2-week period. In other words, I want to tell you how to be a staff sergeant or a sergeant. I was given a 30-day leave before reporting to Goodfellow in March of 66. I was promoted to Airman First Class E4 on September 12th, 1966, at 27 months of service. After training at Goodfellow, I had 5 days to report to Travis for a flight to Taiwan. I had a buddy who had family living outside San Francisco, so we stayed with them. What was so great, it was in April, baseball season was starting, so they got us tickets to opening day of the 1966 baseball season at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. The Giants and the Cubs were playing. So I saw Willie Mays and Juan Marichal and Ernie Banks and all those great guys. And we had tickets right behind home plate, which was terrific. And I had the ticket stub, but I couldn't find the darn thing. I wanted to bring it along to show. I couldn't find it, but I know I got it home there somewhere. I flew out of Travis with stops in Hawaii, Guam, 2 days in a tent at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, and then to Taiwan. I arrived in Taiwan in April of 66. I was assigned a Delta flight. We worked on 3-day cycles instead of 4 like we had in Germany. At 36 months, I was promoted to Staff Sergeant E5, but I still did the same job as I was Airman Second. Now, I want to tell you something. Air Force Security Service, we had a top secret clearance. It was essentially the United States Air Force Cryptographic Intelligence Branch. Its motto was freedom through vigilance. It was created in October 1948 and operated until 1979, when the branch was redesignated Electronic Security Command. It was later redesignated Air Force Intelligence Command, Air Intelligence Agency, and is currently called the Air Force Intelligence Surveillance and Reconnaissance Agency. Now, I wasn't allowed to talk about what I did, but the activities of the security service were declassified in 1997. But I can tell you how we, when we went to work, they had two receivers. You had one in this ear and one in this ear. So you had 2 different stations you were listening to, and as you heard it, you copied it down, and you had to put the call sign behind that line of where it came from. And that's what we did. You can make up your own mind where who we were copying. 69th 87th Security Group was located about 15 miles outside of Taipei on top of a mountain. The station was called Shulinku Air Station. After 10 months and not wanting to re-enlist, I was given orders to report to McCord in Washington for separation, and flew from Taipei through Japan and then on to McCord Air Force Base outside Tacoma. I was separated on February 13th, 1967, and flew home. After, and I have to tell you this, the Glades auction was still going on. So I'd go out there, I knew some of the people there, and that's where I met my wife. So we're old auction people, so I met her there. I got a job as a machinist apprentice at Allis-Chalmers in York. I completed the course and spent 37 years as a machinist at AC, which became Precision Components Corporation in 1983. Now, what we did, we worked on Navy stuff. We did all stuff for the Navy nuclear. We built the heads and the baskets for the reactors, for the carriers, and for the subs. And the machine that I ran, I'd work on the heads and the baskets for the carriers just one piece alone weighed 60 tons. And that sat in front of my machine for 6 months, just one operation. And it would take us 5 years to do one head, from start to it first came in to it went out the door. And I retired from PCC in 2004, and then spent 2 years working at rentals auction with my wife. And then went to work for Mannheim Auto Auction in 2007 and worked for them until COVID shut us down in March of 2020. I worked 3 days a week, parking cars, and on sale day Fridays, I would help run one of the lanes. My job was to start them, jump them if they needed started, checking for gas. That's what I did, and I loved it. Just had the winter time, it got darn cold, but you just dress for it. But I just loved doing that job. I married my wife, Laura Hall, in December of 1994. We're both really into history. And for a while, well, for about 20 years, we were on the board of the Conservation Society of York, who own Indian Steps and Cador's Furnace. We also helped form the Christ Creek Valley Preservation Society of Helena Township. And that's where my uniform is. We have a room down there dedicated to veterans of Helena Township. So that's where I donated my blues to them. So it's on display down there with some of my material from up here. I'm also a supporter of the Commemorative Air Force, who restore and fly World War II era airplanes. That's my thing now. I just love World War II era planes, especially the B-17. I mean, I read so many stories about them. And Jimmy Stewart, he flew to B-24. So I read his life story also. I'm also a member of the American Legion Post 799 in Pleasureville. I've been almost, since I've been out of service, I've been a member there. So that's about all I have to say. Anybody have any questions about anything? Yeah.
I delivered lane rental for years. I was a UPS driver, and it was son real well too, Nevin.
Over at
Yeah,
the farm or whatever.
yeah, on the farm. But when I knew him, I think he was still working for his dad.
Yeah.
That was way back,
Mhm.
probably in the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
What years did you work at Alice Chalmers?
I started there in April '67.
And you worked on the reactor vessels?
Yep.
Did you know a guy named Charlie Lewis?
Yeah.
That was my dad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can always tell, my mother could always tell when Rickover was in town, because dad was always on pins and needles when Rickover was.
Yeah. Yeah. Rick Over came in there one time, and our shop was always rather dark and dingy. And he said, well, this is not going to do. So they had to spray paint that whole inside of that building to light and put better lights and everything in. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Do you remember marching to school down in Biloxi in that humidity heat?
Pardon me?
Do you remember marching to school in Biloxi in that heat and humidity?
I remember marching down there and when it was darn cold in the wintertime. You wouldn't think so. Yeah, our barracks is over in the Triangle area. So we marched across the flight line to school. And in the wintertime, it got rather chilly. You wouldn't think so in the Gulf, but it got rather chilly down there. Yeah.
What was the situation in Taiwan when you were there?
Well,
Peaceful?
more or less.
No protests?
I never saw any.
Uh-huh.
No, I never saw any.
Because I don't think China had did they own them then, or
No.
did they have possession of them?
No,
I didn't think so.
it was nationalist Chinese had it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember we were told that every now and then the nationalist Chinese would fly along the coast. And then one of them would zip into the country and come back out trying to get the Chinese to come out after them. And it did happen one time. They said they had a dogfight and shot one of them down. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah. And we had nationalists, we had Chinese fellows with work cleaned the barracks for us. And the one we had been a major in the National Army back in the 40s. But he was retired now, but he would come up there, he'd come in here and clean our barracks for it. So, and also, there's another thing about Taiwan. If you ever didn't experience, get your hair cut with a pair of hand clippers. We had Chinese barbers and it cost you $0.25. And after you got your hair cut, you would lean over and give you a massage on your back. So that's about all I had to say. I guess it's kind of short, but
All right, good story.
anybody else have anything to?
The clothing was cheap over there too.
Oh, yeah.
I was there. I mean, it was, I think I mentioned somebody here, a record album over there was 50 NT, new Taiwan dollars, $50 for a record album. It was fucking a quarter and hardly.
Yeah, well, I was always told you weren't allowed to take them off the island or books because they were not copyrighted. They would copy them over there and
It was
make
great
it.
for buying stereo equipment, I know that.
Yeah, I was back, I started taking a lot of slides back then,
Yeah,
and I bought a slide projector and screen when I was over there and had that shipped home. But that's why I don't have any pictures here from Taiwan, because I was all in the slides at that time. So,
I got a Sony reel-to-reel in Okinawa, and I think, on my way back from Nam, and it was $200. And after I got back and out of the service, I sold it for $800.
That's pretty good.
yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I had to say.
You've had a really interesting life with all the different groups you're associated with too. Local groups
Yeah.
after the military, you know,
Mhm.
sounds like you keep yourself very busy.
I keep you busy.
You do.
Yeah, well, when I retired in 2004 from PCC, she told me, well, you're not going to sit around and do nothing. So she had me go and work for rentals where she was working at the time. So that's how I got a job there until I was 61 after 2 years, and I got a hernia. So what am I doing lifting all this heavy furniture around? So I quit. And then I went to work at the auto auctions.
Yeah.
Then I retired from there, and then I got a pension from them. So,
I worked, I did eBay back in like 2000, and I got to know the guy in charge at Manheim Auctions. And he told us, he said, you better get into eBay now because it's gonna be a big thing. And it was big for about 5-6 years. And then now it's, a lot of bad people in it, where they're
Yeah.
charging
We're-
higher retailers.
yeah, we're hearing from people too that eBay's not like it
No.
should be. Yeah,
No.
yeah. Okay. And I have a lot of paperwork and pictures up here. You're welcome to come up and look at it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good story.